Yo, I'm coming from that 3-6, so that's why I got them brains spinning. Ain't nobody using blinkers, we ain't good at lane switching. Better get a plane ticket, I ain't flying all you chickens though. Always shoot my shot, better switching off the pick and roll, dishing off the give and go. All my squad is driven so you can catch us on the road. Promise.
Rip City, are you listening? I'm Christian Gamalian, I'm talking with co-host Austin Caphammer, and this is the Peeps and Plaid Podcast. Since our last episode, the Blazers went on a road trip. It was a quick trip. All 4 games on the road trip are complete. They finished 3-1 with wins over the Kings, Mavericks, and Thunder, and a loss on the second game of a back-to-back against the Spurs. Stop it, Austin. Zach Collins went down with a dislocated shoulder and in the second game against the Mavs, and he sat out the final 2 games. Anthony Tolliver got the starts in those 2. And adding to the loss at the start of the season against the Denver Nuggets, the Blazers are now sitting at 3-2. So let's cover the good, the bad, and the ugly. Austin, what are your thoughts initially on this road trip?
Initially, I would say they are hopeful. I would say that I like what I've seen for the most part, given the turnover in our roster. There's definitely some loose ends we need to tie up, but for the most part, I'm pretty hopeful. How about yourself?
When I look at it, I look at 3-1, and I love that. 3-1 with your starting power forward going down halfway through. I love that even more. But when I look at a lot of the games, there's a lot of things where I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But then also through the lens of me a week or 2 ago saying the Blazers are going to have some growing pains. It's a new season with 6 or 7 new players. 3 out of 5 starters from the playoffs last season are gone. There's going to be some growing pains. So with that, 3-1 on a road trip looks great. Tonight I saw against the Thunder, it was, you would hope to beat the Thunder a little better than they did. It was pretty close. It was pretty back and forth. But I like to see that their 3-point shooting was up, percentage-wise for one, but also in numbers. There'd been a lot of talk on, Rip City Radio about just strictly having more 3-pointers, whether or not you're making them. A lot of the teams the Blazers have been playing against, they've struggled in a lot of areas, but they've still continued to shoot a lot of 3-pointers. And even if they're not going in, they're still keeping them in contention in that game. So I like to see that they shot more 3-pointers, and I really like to see that they made a lot more. So that was encouraging for me. I have been pretty impressed with the way Tolliver and Scal have played. A few days ago, before Tolliver got the start, there was talk of like, I don't want to see Tolliver start. And for me, I personally was not the biggest fan of the Tolliver signing. I like that the Blazers were getting a shooter so that Dame has more options, that he's not just getting eaten up in the playoffs and doesn't have anyone to pass to. But I wasn't the biggest fan of it personally, just because I haven't really watched much of Anthony Tolliver. And the way he started the season was pretty terrible. He was like 0 for 4 in all that he played, and he was like minus on his plus-minus every game. It's like, okay, what has he done? And I was like, me personally, I don't want him to start. But as a Blazers fan, I kind of wanted him to start because, for one, he's a veteran, so he has experience. Terry Stotts, after the game, said that he knows that he's defended LaMarcus Aldridge well, which I didn't know. So that was pretty encouraging to hear. But to me, I'm like, if you're going to sign players in free agency, you can't just bench them immediately when they don't start making shots, when they miss 4 shots. Like, you can't get in rhythm if you miss 1 shot a game and get taken out of the game. That makes no sense. So it just, on the whole, if you're going to be signing guys in free agency, no matter who they are, you want to kind of hold up your end of the deal too. They're not going to, if they don't have an opportunity, they're just going to leave and have a sour taste in their mouth from their time in Portland. Yeah. So, I think
that's probably why a lot of players don't have that sour taste in their mouth when they leave Portland. And I think that's a pretty decent portion of why a lot of players leave Portland and say, hey, that was actually one of the better franchises or cultures that I played with. The only quick thing that I want to add to your point is that in watching some of the recaps and the highlights, because I had a little bit of a late day at my day job, I noticed that Tolliver and Mr. Bazemore had a pair each from behind the arc in the meat of the game. And when I say the meat of the game, I mean the second and the third quarter, I believe. They both had a pair. And that might not seem like much, but like we had discussed in our first regular season episode of this year, there was a trio between Hazonia. Notice I said Hazonia, not Herzonia. Tolliver and Bays, who, you know, I think they had a goose egg, or maybe had 1 for 11 or something in
Yep.
for our recent conversation. So when you're those guys, having 4 3-point shots between just 2 of them, that's big.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, and Tolliver, he had he had a back-to-back 3-pointers in this game in the second quarter, I think it was, and it was they both looked great. It was impressive, and it was really cool to see that they had that option. There was one where Tolliver had the ball, he passed it, and he got it passed back, and he shot it and made it. So, yeah, it's just cool to see, especially with the big man issues they've been having. With obviously Nurk is out, Pau Gasol's been out to start the season. Zach Collins has been out the last 2 games, and we'll talk about Zach Collins' injury a little more in just a minute. And then Hassan Whiteside hyperextended his knee, according to Whiteside at least. I didn't see an official source on that, but he hyperextended his knee.
That's where we got that from? Did he tweet that?
No. Like Casey Holdall was saying, Whiteside said that he was a little sore after hyperextending it and all that. So from what I could find, I didn't see any legit confirmation. Because to me, when I hear hyperextended, I'm like, oh shoot, there's definitely structural damage if there's a hyperextension. Maybe not necessarily with dislocation with Zach's shoulder, Patrick Mahomes' knee dislocation, kneecap. But hyperextension, I'm like, oh shoot, that's not good. But he played 12 minutes in the second half. He played great. So considering that, I'm very thankful for how well Tolliver and Scal are playing. That's another guy where, Scal, compared to Biggie, Swanigan last year, he wasn't really getting any opportunities. Scal didn't get any opportunities last year until the last game of the season, and he played amazing. And this season he's gotten opportunities, and it's in Stotts' system, just showing him if you put in the work and if you're willing to play hard, if the opportunity presents itself like it is right now with the big men going down, he's going to get a chance to shine. And he had, I think, plus-minus of 14 tonight, which is just awesome. And plus-minus of 13. So, yeah, as far as the big men, I'm feeling pretty good about it considering the situation, considering it's not very deep right now. What are your thoughts on?
I think that the big moral of the story from your opinion there is that you can't necessarily afford to be an unskilled player at any position in Terry Stotts' system. It really just kind of hit me listening to you discuss that, because Biggie Swanigan was last year. I couldn't tell you where he is right now. Is he in the G League? He's in the Kings?
Oh,
that's right.
He's probably in the G League, but yeah, he's still with the Kings. That's where he's traded to.
That's right. So, and big ups to him and wish the best for him. But if you look at every person on the Trailblazers roster right now, if you look at the gentlemen that are playing versus the ones that aren't, it's entirely based on who's a better skilled player, who's got the shot, who's got the drop step, who is really able to finesse within their offensive game. You have to be a really transcendent player to not fit the bill in Terry Stotts' offense as a skilled player to still see court time. And it really took a 7-footer that is averaging, at least the last time I checked, almost 15 rebounds a game. That was in the first 2 or 3 games, but who am I speaking about? Hassan Whiteside, to really be that guy and really still see court time. Otherwise, you have to be a skilled player, whether you're a passer, shooting, whatever, because it's a very dynamic offense. And I know there's probably a couple people out there who are not a big fan of the stance that I've taken individually with Mr. Terry Stotts' offense here as of late, along with Mr. Torrey Jones. But part of that trade-off with having a coach who is giving so much power to the players and so much leniency with a play-by-play offense is you have to be able to be dynamic, and you have to be able to call the audible, so to speak, and be that player who can make something happen. And it really doesn't matter if you're a center. It really doesn't matter if you want to label yourself a traditional center. If you can't make it happen in one way or another, it's going to be pretty difficult to see the floor in Terry Stotts' offense.
Yeah. So we're talking about big men. Zach Collins had a shoulder dislocation. I'm a little concerned, personally. The situation currently, as far as I know, is Zach Collins was evaluated on the road trip, and before they said anything, they just said, he's going to miss the next 2 games, and we're going to reevaluate him in Portland. Hopefully, that's just to be cautious. That's like, hey, we want to make sure he's good with our doctors. Hopefully, that's all it means. In my head, spinning, it's Zach Collins could miss a lot of time, and we want to see if hopefully we get a different word from our doctors who we trust more. For whatever reason, I'm just really concerned that he might miss a lot of time with this. And if that's the case, that kind of puts more pressure on a potential trade for a power forward, like we've been talking about, Kevin Love, Blake Griffin, something like that. But obviously, I like how Tolliver and Scal have been playing. Whiteside's been playing great. So it's awesome that the Blazers have that depth, even though they're having to scrape from it right now. But another thing that happened around the NBA, Steph Curry broke his hand. Yeah. I don't know how long he's going to be out, but the Golden State Warriors haven't looked very good. Steph Curry just broke his hand. Is Draymond Green available, and do we want him?
No.
What do you think? You don't want him?
No, absolutely not. He would have to come at a pretty cheap price. I think I was listening or watching The Jump the other day, and somebody had referenced him as being 6'6", or obviously I'm aware of this. He's 6'5".
Garden centers. Yep.
No, don't want him.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, do we want him? Okay, I should backtrack a little bit. Do we want him? Yeah, a little bit. Do we want him for what is the proposed trade that we've been seeing in all these hypotheticals? No, not at all. If you're saying that we have to get rid of Zach Collins and maybe a draft pick or 2 for him, I don't know about that. That being said, the Warriors actually have a lot of pieces. I know they have Willie Cauley-Stein. I want to say they still have Kevon Looney, potentially.
They do.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, we're kind of lacking in the front court. I mean, if we get rid of, I don't know. It gets real hazy once you start getting down the hypothetical route with some of these trades. And I really do like what our recent guest Team Mom had noted, that, you know, these are real guys. They have families. They move their kids in some cases to a place. It's pretty tough to discuss it in the light of getting rid of some of these guys. But in terms of acquiring, I just don't know how I feel about Mr. Green coming to Portland. It's very contingent upon what we would have to give up, and I think it's rather soon. If there's one thing that I would like to submit, it would be that we cannot get rid of Anthony Simons. If there's one main point I've gathered in the context of that trade discussion, it would be that Anthony Simons is just too valuable. And I understand it's a little bit subjective, but what I've seen in my recent 4 or 5 games with him is I've seen flashes. Yeah. And that's such a substanceless opinion, but I've seen it off the window. I've seen it off the window against 2 people. I've seen the step back 3. I've seen the elbow pull up. I've seen things that 5 to 7 year veteran guards don't make happen in their game.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see the merit behind Mr. Olshey's statement that he is the most naturally gifted player that he's drafted. So as somebody who's dislocated their shoulder and separated their shoulder 2 to 3 times, I can tell you that it's probably crap if you expect Zach Collins to come back within 2 games. you're buying the PR sentiment at that point, and that's just not true. He will not be back after the next 2 games. If he is, I hate to say it, and I really do wish the best for him, but it will be re-injured within the next 2 weeks following that. When you stretch a ligament like that, especially over your head as somebody who's already a 7-footer and is experiencing abnormal anatomy conditions as a 7-footer, reaching up and having other 7-footers ripping down from behind you with a separated shoulder, you're just asking for a completely dislocated shoulder. So I wish the best for Zach, and I want him to take his time, but he's a third-year player. We have a lot of guys that are waiting or awaiting that, I don't want to say the All-Star break, but the midway point. So, float the 500. Pray that Damian Lillard stays healthy. Pray that CJ McCollum stays healthy. Make the role players develop while you have the luxury of letting them develop in this time. But to put him back out there before he's ready, you're just asking for it, in my opinion.
Yeah. With my thoughts on Draymond Green, I don't want to get too far into trade talk because we're going to be talking about trade talk hypotheticals the whole season. And close to the trade deadline, we'll be focusing on that, I'm sure. So I just want to float out there, I'll be thinking about what the value would be for Draymond Green if I really want the Blazers to pursue him, and if I would prefer him over Kevin Love, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, Aaron Gordon, Danilo Gallinari. So I'll be thinking about that going forward. But switching gears, I heard in an interview with, I can't even think of the Rip City Mornings. Terry Stotts was on with them, and Terry Stotts had mentioned offensive rebounding. They asked him about offensive rebounding, if that's a point of emphasis at all. And Terry Stotts basically said that he has never emphasized offensive rebounding. It's just if you're there, you're there. And a lot of the players that he has, like Ed Davis and Enes Kanter, actually he said Yusuf Nurkic, but in my head I was thinking Enes Kanter. He's these are guys that just get offensive rebounds. So how do you feel about that? That a coach doesn't even put an emphasis on offensive rebounds, that the emphasis is get back on defense, which it's okay to have a choice of okay, this is what our focus is going to be, but that doesn't even seem to really cross his mind. How do you feel about that?
I feel that if he's delegating that responsibility to Olshey as just bringing in people who he knows are already going to provide that talent, that's one thing. But if he's just, as a coach, just pawning off that responsibility, that's a completely another thing. And that being said, the aforementioned point of Olshey bringing in those players, he's done a good job of that to this
point.
Recently. I don't like it. I'm trying to justify it. I don't like it. And while we're on the topic, I want to see more set plays, and I want to see more will imposed by Terry Stotts as an NBA coach as of late. I wish I could give you more technical examples of that, but I'm seeing too much dilly-dally and too much I don't know. I'm just seeing too much hands-off coaching right now.
Yeah.
And I promise you, to our audience of 50 a week, I will come to you with more concrete points regarding that. But I think that it is indicative of what we've already seen in him saying, "Oh, we'll figure out the offensive rebounding." No, offensive rebounds are what you need as a team that is struggling to build chemistry at this point.
Yeah.
Because that's a part of second effort buckets. That just frustrated me, Christian.
I know, right? I'm very glad that we have Hassan Whiteside, maybe the best rebounder in the game. That makes it easy. Offensive rebounds. He's a putback king. That's what he does. So it's awesome to see him get the rebound and immediately go back up with it. It's a little concerning to me. Terry Stotts is awesome. I think he's one of the top Coach of the Year candidates, as long as the Blazers play to how I hope they do. But Yeah, there's a lot of things like that where it's really easy for me to be here and say, this is what Terry Stotts should do. This is what Terry Stotts should do. He's obviously in the ins and outs. He's living his life. Coaching basketball is his job. It's not his entire life, things like that. But it's like, it can get frustrating as a fan to see, the Denver Nuggets hit threes and you got to be on them and the Blazers are not on them. And I don't know, just a lot of stuff with like, having a big man, unless it's Yusuf Nurkic, having a big man at the top of the key trying to distribute hasn't been working. Let's stop doing that. And yet he keeps doing it. Like in previous seasons, I've noticed that. And then with this, where it's like, okay, like I understand like you have a different emphasis, but offensive rebounding is still something that should be practiced. I don't know. Maybe that's just something that like the players with their individual trainers, that's something they do. Maybe that's something an assistant coach focuses on, but it's just kind of weird to hear that from Terry Stotts. But I mean, I'm still very happy to have him as the Portland Trailblazers coach. I think he's been killing it. But yeah, it's just weird to hear.
Yeah. And one quick point I want to make is, as we digress from these trade discussions, is I was a huge Aaron Gordon proponent as the season had commenced. And Aaron Gordon against the Knicks in their most recent game had 15 points. Against the Raptors, he played for 30 minutes. The game prior had 2 points. Played in the game prior to that. I just had the team. I don't have it listed, but another 30-minute game with 10 points. And then the game prior to that, 29 minutes with 9 points against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I want to rescind that hypothetical.
Scratch him off the list.
Yeah, and I know it's just one season. I know it's just 5 games, but that's not tolerable for the kind of player and the kind of things that have been discussed in the past that we'd be willing to give up for Aaron Gordon. So that's off the table in my mind at this point. Because the other players that we've mentioned in that discussion, such as Blake Griffin, Kevin Love, and some of these other guys that are real impact players, I don't think that through 4 or 5 games they would exemplify any of those statistics.
Yeah.
So I guess the discussion at that point starts to get directed towards some other young men. But the other 2 things that I wanted to discuss here, aside from the Curry hand situation around the NBA, was Mr. Karl-Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid getting in a fight. It's kind of some TMZ news here from us at Peeps and Plaid, and then also Mr. James Harden with almost 60 points.
Well, not just that, the Rockets Wizards set the new record for the amount of points in regulation. They combined for 317 points. The game was 159 to 158. James Harden had 59. Russell Westbrook had a triple-double. So just a pretty wild night in sports. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the World Series. Neither of us are huge baseball fans. I'm a Giants fan, Bay Area, all that. But the Nationals just beat the Astros in the World Series. And there's, it's a couple teams with a bunch of aces. There's, the Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, Detroit Tigers kind of thing. I don't know. There's just a lot of storylines to it, and what was crazy is not a single home game was won. A 7-game series that was won. Every away team won. So the Nationals won the first 2 games Nationals won it in Houston, and it was like, oh shoot, they're about to sweep or something because they're going back home. Astros won 3 straight in Washington. Then they went back to Houston, and it's like, oh shoot, all right, Astros are going to close it out. They're back home. They lost 2. Nationals won it. Isn't that just crazy?
That's
and the Nationals won
That's almost like
after losing Bryce Harper.
That's crazy. And I have a Steven Strasburg jersey in my closet as we speak that I'm going to be wearing for Halloween tomorrow at my office.
There you go.
But that's just asinine, man. You don't hear about that stuff in the NBA. That kind of performance, and also that reminds me of the recent. I think it was Tampa Bay Lightning or something like that in the NHL. That was like an 8th seed that managed to make it to like either their conference finals or something along those lines in the NHL. If you're an NHL fan, please enlighten me. But that does not happen in the NBA because it's it's such a smaller roster, and one player can take over a game. And if you have one player, that might be all it takes. Look at Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy to me. And then the other quick thing I want to hit on around the NBA is something that I had already retweeted on our mutual Twitter account, which was, if these reports about Kyrie Irving being someone who is bipolar or struggling with their mental health are true, I think that it's pertinent for us to keep in mind that there have been several other players that have came to light in recent years in that discussion and have kind of had a homecoming. So just because Kyrie Irving as an individual has not had the same individual success as said players, does not mean that they shouldn't receive the same amount of support. So, there's my 2 cents around the league.
Sure. Yeah. I'm not the most, I'm not good with mental health stuff. I don't understand it. So, that's me.
That's fair.
So, going back to a bit of news from the NBA, Joel Embiid and Karl-Anthony Towns had a fight. It was pretty intense. It was pretty cool. Ended with Ben Simmons on top of Karl-Anthony Towns in like a chokehold. It was pretty legit. And both Embiid and Towns were ejected from the game. And many people are speculating that they will both be suspended for at least one game. Joel Embiid would likely then not be playing in the 76ers-Blazers game this Saturday, which is one of 2 games that is going to happen in the next week before our next episode. So I will be at that game, and the Blazers are about to wreck because the game last year, Blazers 76ers, Embiid also did not play, and the Blazers absolutely destroyed them. So I am expecting a decisive victory. I'm expecting Ben Simmons to be a bully on Damian Lillard like he was last year. I was pretty dang mad at Ben Simmons after that game. But coming up, if Joel Embiid isn't playing, the Blazers have no excuse. Whiteside should wreck. I mean, it's Al Horford there. He's obviously very good at basketball. He's very good at defense. He's pretty much good at everything. He's just not, the most dominant player. I expect the Blazers to win that game, even with Zach Collins probably not playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, those matchups, though, that some of these teams are starting to present. Just like LeBron playing up point forward, or Giannis, kind of bringing the ball up the court. It's like that, only if the entire rest of the team's role players were over 6'6". It's like, okay, what kind of challenge does this pose to us when CJ McCollum is 6'3" too? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, what does that matchup look like to you? Who's playing on each side of the court and who's guarding who?
Well, the Philadelphia 76ers are not a very deep team. I'm not sure if they are deeper than last year or not. Let me see.
I mean, it would be, so in my mind, it would be Simmons, Richardson, Horford, Harris, and I don't know who is sub for Embiid.
Probably. Shoot, that's the thing. Mike Scott. I don't know. Put in Horford at center.
So he would, Horford at center, Harris at 4, Scott at 3, Richardson at 2, Simmons at 1. But even then, that presents some physicality issues for the Blazers. And, I think Rodney holds his own. I think Scal matches up well in the front court with Hassan, and that's fine. I mean, even if you have some mismatches where Ben Simmons easily gets by that first level defense, that's fine, as long as you are playing perimeter defense and when that ball gets dished out, it's not too much of an issue. But I just want to say really quick, something that I observed with the Spurs game that was driving me crazy was these players that were not even historically in their career 3-point or long 2 shooters being pressed above the 3-point line. DeMar DeRozan it was the chief point in this discussion. Many of his 17 points in the third quarter, albeit impressive and crazy and talented, I saw Rodney Hood and a guard or two like pressing him at the 3-point line. Let him shoot it. I mean, let him shoot it. Not let him. Don't sag off of him, but to press him at the 3-point line.
I mean,
because they're in Christian. If you can be blown by, that's one thing. If you're going to be blown by, because when you press, you're going to be blown by. Okay, sag off. If you're the kind of defender like Kent Bazemore who can play that press defense on ball and then still recover, that's another thing. But I watched several times over in that Spurs game, DeMar DeRozan just get past the first line of defense.
Yeah,
like butter. And if that's what we're about to allow with Ben Simmons, he's going to go for 20-some-odd points.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me is after the Nuggets game, after the Blazers allowed so many threes, obviously the Spurs and the Nuggets are different teams, but I think the Nuggets can rely on the 3-point shot more than the Spurs for sure. But I would much rather see the Blazers make more of an attempt at the 3-point line than less of an attempt. So if it's not working, it's not working. Hopefully you have Hassan Whiteside and Zach Collins available to get some blocks if they blow past the first defender. But yeah, I mean, that game was really disappointing. The Blazers were up like 19 in the first quarter. It was like 23-4 or something like that. And, it was neck and neck toward the end. Dame, at the end, it was like a lot of Blazers games where Dame was just playing hero ball, which is, it's awesome that we have Damian Lillard on the team, but it'd be nice to have other guys step up, especially when you have CJ and other Rodney Hood, other big time shooters on the team. But
it's a player by player basis too, right? Like Derek White, Patty Mills, LaMarcus Aldridge, Brent Forbes, all of those players play up on them. Up on them. That's fine. I get it. But if it's DeMar DeRozan, which in this case is going to be Ben Simmons this coming Saturday, don't.
Well, I'm trying to think of who's going to guard who on the 76ers game. Because let's see. I feel like they're just going to go straight up. They're going to keep Dame on Ben. They're going to keep CJ on Josh Richardson. Hood on Harris. Just depends on who they put in the starting lineup, because it's probably between Mike Scott or Kyle O'Quinn. Unless they want to go... I mean, I don't know how good Matisse Thybulle is. I think he's
solid. He's solid for a rookie, I believe.
Or was he on the Celtics last year? Was he one of the...
Is he a sophomore year?
Up.
Who knows?
I don't even know, Matisse.
And this is when what's-his-face is right about us being background noise while they're doing dishes.
Facts. I don't know. My internet doesn't work now. Cool. Matisse Thybulle. He is a rookie from Washington. Yes, from our own state. Awesome. UW. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing him in the draft now that I think about it. Shows you how much I care about college basketball.
But it's okay.
Thybulle. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe they'll throw him in the lineup. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing Simmons is going to be guarding Dame like he did last year, and I'm guessing Dame's just gonna guard Simmons too. And maybe a few times you'll have Rodney switch over. I'm sure on the second unit, Kent Bazemore will probably be covering Ben Simmons. That makes sense to me, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's gonna be a good game, hopefully, but with Embiid out, the Blazers better win this because the 76ers are not deep. They were completely horrendous last year in their second unit.
I think it's crap. I think it's crap that people think that they're a lock for the Eastern Conference Finals. Not only just not just an appearance. That's one thing to state an appearance for them, but to state that they're going to be a Finals contender. I mean, I guess whatever. It's the East, but like, dude, to me, it's the Celtics and the Bucks, and God, the East is so bad. The East is so bad.
Well, the thing is, to me, the Pacers were in it, but Victor Oladipo is going to be out for a long time, and now Miles Turner has some sort of injury. Hopefully, not too bad. But I mean, the Bucks are clear-cut best team in the East. As long as they're 2-2 right now. But
the Raptors,
the Raptors
are better in my mind than the Sixers.
I don't know, man. The Raptors without Kawhi, I mean, they got like depth in the front court, and they got Kyle Lowry. But I've never been a Kyle Lowry fan, and I don't feel too good about the rest of it.
What was your chief concern with the Sixers?
For the Sixers is depth.
Okay, now, let me ask you this. What is the chief issue in most contenders' contention as they go down the stretch in a 82-game season?
Injuries?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an issue. They're healthy now. Embiid's out.
Yeah.
But Embiid has a history of ailments. They already can't shoot the 3-ball. They haven't really been there on the biggest stage yet. I'm getting kind of into the weeds or a rabbit hole at this point. But
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, to me, they're still easily top 3, and I would pick them for the Eastern Conference Finals. But you're extremely right. Injuries are the main thing. I mean, you look at the finals last year with Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant with injury issues. Like, that's the reason they lost the finals. Like, I mean, you could list off a bunch of reasons, but like, that's the reason why, because they were head and shoulders above every other team, no matter how well Kawhi's doing. So it really does come down to injuries, and 76ers are very vulnerable to injuries this season, especially. So we'll see how it goes. They're 4-0 to start the season, so Blazers better give them that first loss. We'll see.
Is that our next game on the docket?
That's the Blazers' next game. So 76ers, and then in San Francisco, I was about to say Oakland, San Francisco for the Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry.
Oh, man.
So 2 straight games without star players, probably best player on either team. I mean, I'll take him.
My, how the mighty fall.
Shoot, Blazers better win these next 2. If next episode the Blazers are not 2-0 in these last 2 games, we're gonna. I mean, there's growing pains, like I've said, but it's kind of unexactable.
So just in a recap, 76ers on Saturday, Warriors on Sunday or Monday?
Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, they got a little bit of a breakup here. I should be able to be productive these next couple days.
Quick road trip, and considering how quick it was, like, Blazers did great. I mean, 3-2 right now after a quick road trip and after the sucky first game against the Nuggets. I'm feeling good. I mean, Blazers, yeah. Next one after that will be against the Clippers. Like, you can lose that game. That's okay. But you win these next 2, okay? But 76ers, it's going to be 70s night. I'm going to be at the game. I'm stoked. I need to, like, find some way to dress like I'm in the 70s. I don't know. See how it goes. All right.
What you doing for Halloween, man? Are you doing anything
for Halloween? Special? Oh, nothing special. So, taking care of my dog because my dog is old, and man, I'll be hanging out with him. But I invited people over. I was like, hey, like, if you want to come over, you can come over because
take care of my dog.
I need to take care of my dog and give kids candy. So I'll be at my house, and you're welcome to join. So yeah, we'll see if anyone shows up. I have board games and movies and things, so that's fun.
Good stuff.
What about you?
Stuff. Oh, just throwing on that Strasburg jersey for the company shindig tomorrow, and then coming home and chillaxing. I live in a town with the largest public university in the world with 60,000 students and a couple square miles. So there's really not too much trick-or-treating going on here.
So Halloween.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about it. I'm actually going to just be taking it easy, and yeah, that's about it, man. So shout out our audience, and hope you all enjoy your Halloween. I think that's all Christian and I have for you this evening. Shout out Ziggy Zay as always for the intro, and Mashoni for the outro. Find each of those gentlemen in our recently tagged post here, and or our descriptions in any of our recent and or more than likely current descriptions. Locate us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, any of that jazz. And Rip City, are you listening?